All right, we'll go ahead and get things kicked off. I appreciate everyone joining in tonight a little early. So glad that each of you have had a good week and look forward to our study here tonight. I'm going to give everybody just another moment to get connected into our live session. And again, so thankful for each who have been very kind and helpful and encouraging with your responses and the feedback I've gotten with this series on faith, feelings, and mental health. Of course, this is brought to you by Looking Forward Counseling here in Rogersville, Tennessee. All right. Just want to say good evening to everyone. Welcome again to a Looking Forward Live. Today, our topic is when helping starts hurting. It's a conversation about compassion fatigue, burnout, enabling, boundaries, and healing. So I find that many caring people, especially people of faith, were taught that love means giving until there's nothing left, until you're just completely burned through. But compassion without limits can become exhaustion, it can become resentment, and it can even lead to a lot of harm. So today I want to make just a simple but important point. You're allowed to care without carrying everything. So let's say that once again. This is the important point I want you to get tonight is that you're allowed to care without trying to carry everything. Christian love is real, it's sacrificial, and it's compassionate. But it's not the same thing as losing yourself, ignoring your limits, or becoming responsible for everyone else's choices. This conversation matters because helpers often look strong on the outside while they're breaking down on the inside. They keep showing up, they keep saying yes, they keep answering the phone, they keep trying to fix everything, and eventually they wonder why they feel angry, why they feel numb or tired or just spiritually dry. In faith communities, this can be complicated because people may call burnout servanthood or call poor boundaries love. But if the pattern is destroying your emotional, physical, and spiritual health, it definitely deserves attention. Healthy helping is not selfish. Healthy helping is sustainable, it's honest, and it's rooted in love with wisdom. So, again, good helpers can quietly become overwhelmed. And this happens all too often, too many times. We burn people out. And then if they do something odd or strange or seems like something sinful, then they tend to be just be thrown away. And then we wonder, well, it's got to be some character flaw or some sin in their life. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we're demanding way too much of everyone all the time. So one reason that helping becomes painful is that helping can become identity. Instead of saying, I'm a person who helps, we start believing that I only matter when I'm useful. That's a heavy way to live. Some people become the strong one in the family, the fixer in the church, the emotional caretaker in every relationship. Now, that role may have started because it was necessary somewhere in the past, But over time, it's become almost a prison when our worth depends on being needed. We may feel guilty when we're resting, when you're saying no, or letting others carry responsibility for their own lives. So, again, sometimes being needed becomes the role that we hide inside of ourselves. Again, it can become it can become a complete identity for someone. So, I want to talk about compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is what happens when repeated exposure to other people's pain begins to wear down on our emotional capacity. So, look, this isn't a character flaw. It's not proof that you don't really care. Often it's proof that you have cared so deeply for such a long time without enough rest and without enough support, or you've not really put up any boundaries, any sort of healthy boundaries. It may show up as irritability, numbness, dread, anxiety, resentment, or just a genuine loss of joy. Many helpers feel guilty for these symptoms, but guilt does not fix the burnout. What helps is honesty, is rest, is boundaries, and seeking out some support. So, a key distinction is the difference between love and enabling. Love supports growth, love can tell the truth. Love helps people move toward responsibility. Enabling, on the other hand, keeps destructive patterns alive by rescuing people from every consequence. Enabling may feel loving in the moment, but over time, it can keep both people stuck. The helper becomes exhausted, and the other person doesn't develop any sense of responsibility. So, love isn't control and love isn't rescue. Love is not doing for someone what they're capable of learning to do for themselves. So, this is how we can care without losing ourselves. Once again, we look to the example of Jesus we see presented in the gospel stories. If you're a person of faith, then you look to the gospels, you see that's important to notice here that Jesus was deeply compassionate. He's portrayed as very deeply compassionate, but not endlessly available in the way many burned out helpers think they must be. And I've made this point before. Oftentimes we look at the example of Jesus, but I will remind you, I know that you take on the teachings of Jesus. You want to be more like Jesus and his example. But please just remember, you are not Jesus. You are not the one in these gospel stories who's able to do all these great things. Doesn't mean you can't uh, use these examples in your life to help you, to help give you a way forward, to give you a guide. But also remember that, again, Jesus withdraws himself away from people in order to pray or meditate. Jesus rests. He gets away from the crowds at various times. He allowed people to walk away. Now, this is especially endemic in the evangelical churches and evangelical conservative churches. It's taught that you constantly have to be going after these people who are sinners and helping them, and you're just constantly having to do all these great things. Well, if that's so, then why does Jesus allow some people just to walk away? He says, okay, well, they've run away. He doesn't rush after them. He's not pleading with them. He didn't let everyone else's expectations determine his calling or what it's about. So, and this matters because many Christians think that limits are just unloving. That's not compassionate. But in the example we have in the Gospels of the life of Jesus, limits and love are not enemies of one another. The compassion that's there, that's presented, is very real, but it's rooted in communion with those who he had the support of. It's not just in people pleasing, but it's in the fact that sometimes you need to be in solitude, and sometimes you have to have that connection with those around you who are supporting what you're doing. Helpers can fall into what some people call a savior complex. This is the savior complex trap. So you can care deeply about other people without becoming the rescuer always. Uh, we may not say this out loud sometimes, but we live as if everything depends on us. Sometimes that's how we feel our worth is people depend on me, and I that's my identity, that's my worth. I don't really feel important if people aren't depending on me. We feel responsible for everyone's feelings, for their choices, for what they believe about their faith, for their recovery, and even for their future. But that's too much weight for anybody to bear. Any human being, we just can't bear all that. The truth is just very simple. Again, you're not God. You're not Jesus. um, I'm not someone else's conscience. I'm not responsible for every outcome. I can be faithful without being in control of these situations. There's nothing. This isn't abandonment. This is what's called humility. Humility is recognizing your own limitations and understanding how to work with those limitations. So that again, this is why we can't do these things on our own and why we need support and encouragement. Part of that support and encouragement comes from healthy boundaries. There's healthy boundaries help helpers remain compassionate without being consumed. An unhealthy pattern says that I must always be available, where a healthier practice says I can have clear availability. I can let people know what that availability is. An unhealthy pattern says I've got to fix this, whereas a healthier practice says what is mine that I can carry and what is not mine to carry. Another unhealthy pattern says uh, yes from guilt. So you're feeling guilt, so you just automatically say yes. A healthy love says yes with wisdom, but sometimes has to say no for the sake of truth or safety or sustainability. So, you don't have to absorb other people's emotions. You can offer empathy without internalizing the emotions of everyone else. Because again, they'll gladly give you all that to carry if you'll carry it for them. So, what can burnout be telling you? Burnout is not only a problem to defeat. Sometimes burnout's a messenger. And we go over this with each session that your body is telling you something. The burnout is a feeling and it's telling you so your body may be asking you maybe for some rest. Your resentment that you're feeling, it doesn't mean that you're a sinful, horrible person. Your resentment may be pointing to a crossed boundary. Somebody's crossed your boundaries, but maybe you haven't communicated what those boundaries are because you're afraid it doesn't seem compassionate. Your exhaustion may be revealing an unsustainable role that you're carrying for some people in the world. Maybe you're just their go to so much, and their problems can be so overwhelming that you just feel exhausted by it. You just feel exhausted thinking about a certain person or their presence. Your anger may be asking you to just tell the truth and be honest. So instead of shaming yourself for struggling, ask what the struggle is trying to show you. Because the goal here isn't to become less compassionate. The goal is to become more honest about what compassion requires so you can know how to remain healthy. So, a lot of religiously sensitive people struggle with this because they were taught that any need, any limit, or that any time you say no is just selfish, that you're not being like Jesus, that you're not being like the examples that they give you of all these people in the Bible who had these lives of just supernatural blessing to the point of they weren't even real people. Uh, but faithful helping shouldn't be about self erasure. Dying to yourself doesn't mean destroying yourself or ignoring your health or becoming emotionally absent from your own life. Your own needs are not automatically selfish. Your limitations are part of being a human. Your rest can be really an act of trust. And sometimes your no protects the integrity of your yes. If you're endlessly saying yes all the time, then it becomes meaningless. That has no integrity behind it. Again, your needs aren't selfish. Dying to yourself does not mean that you absolutely destroy your own self and who you are, and that you give up everything that's important to you or helps you to remain healthy just for other people. Dying to yourself simply is part of this process where you're learning how to take care of yourself to be healthy so you've actually got something to give people. If you've given of yourself so much that there's absolutely nothing left, then you have nothing to really give people when they do need it. So dying to yourself is not destroying yourself. It's what it does, it's tearing down the old ways of thinking and helping develop healthier ways of thinking. That's what dying to yourself means. It means investing in yourself to give yourself the support you need so you can become healthier. That's what's important. Just like if you have a diabetic that goes to a diabetic specialist, the diabetic specialist helps somebody learn not to just not eat anything, but to learn what foods to eat in order to help you become stronger and healthier through this process. So here's a simple discernment practice. Before you step in, pause and ask yourself, is this really my burden that I need to carry? Is this my responsibility? Or is it mine to care about? Do I need to invest carrying in this? Those are different. Those are different things. Am I helping from love, from fear? Am I helping from guilt or control? Ask yourself, will my help increase responsibility here or reduce it? You can ask, what limit would make this sustainable? These questions don't make us cold and callous or uncaring. They just, again, make us honest about the where we're coming from. and what we can do. They help us offer care that's clearer and wiser and much less reactive. So, again, there's nothing wrong with if somebody needs something to ask yourself, okay, how much do I need to invest in this? Or do I need to carry this? Do I need to help them carry this load or not? This is very contextual. And sometimes it takes this to help us figure that out because some of us that have lived any time at all and have helped other people realize sometimes when you've helped, again, you've enabled rather than actually shown them love to help them carry something where they can learn to carry it on their own or learn to become more responsible. It's like raising children. You raise children to not always be children, but to teach them how to learn to be responsible and mature. That doesn't mean that you don't ever support your grown children. That just means that you help them do all the things that they can do on their own. Uh, so it's not unloving, it's just helping people grow. So rescue and support are not the same thing. That's what we're talking about here. Rescue says, I will save you from your discomfort. Whereas support says, I will walk with you honestly. Rescue says, I must prevent every consequence. Whereas support says, I can help without erasing responsibility. Rescue makes someone else's crisis your emergency every time, where support allows you to stay calm, be clear, and connected while still honoring your limitations. Support is often more loving because it respects the dignity and the agency of the other person. If you're always rescuing the other person, it's like you're saying that they're never capable of ever having their own agency or that they're never capable of taking on the responsibility. But if you respect someone's dignity, if you respect who they are and as a person, you can help them grow and not just take care of something all the time for someone. Okay, as we wrap this up again, I always leave you with some reflection questions for this week. And I want to invite you to again think about this through the week. Write these out if you want, email me, message me, put the comments in the Facebook comments below. Uh, Again, don't put personal information there. You don't want somebody to know. But again, if you need to say something that's got some personal information, you can always email me. That'll be kept confidential. But I want to invite you to just think about these questions this week. Where am I helping from a place of guilt rather than a place of love? Where's that happening in my life? It's good. Again, thinking about these questions helps you grow as a helper and helps you stay healthy. But where are there places where you're helping just where you just feel guilty rather than being from a place of compassion or love? What role have I accepted that is just too heavy? And that's okay to admit that because it helps you stay honest instead of taking on anger and resentment. Next, ask yourself, what boundary would restore honesty and peace? What boundaries do I need to put up that are healthy for me? And then you can ask yourself this last question: who supports me while I support others? And this is extremely important because, again, if you have nothing to give anyone else, then it's really no value. Because if you've emptied yourself of everything helping everyone else, then you've got nothing to give when the time comes. So these questions might bring you some discomfort, but discomfort isn't always a bad thing. It just helps us work through and process these issues. Sometimes discomfort means truth is beginning to surface. So you don't have to answer all this today, but just think about it through the week. You can start by paying attention to the places where helping no longer feels like love, but feels more like pressure, feels more like fear, or feels like absolute exhaustion. And remember this too, helpers need help too. If you feel emotionally numb, resentful, depleted, anxious, or unable to say no without panic or shame, it may be time for you to seek some support and help. If your helping is enabling unsafe or destructive patterns, this also deserves your attention. If you're losing sleep or peace or health or even hope, please don't dismiss that as weakness or somehow you don't have enough faith or something like that. Sometimes the helper needs a safe place to tell the truth honestly, to rebuild some healthy boundaries, to grieve. There's nothing wrong with grieving, maybe relationships through the years that have changed or that have died out. It's okay to think about maybe there's some rest that's needed or maybe learn a healthier pattern of care. Some people have been the caretaker all their lives since childhood and they don't know how to be anything else. That can happen to lots of us who have had to be the caretakers or the peacemakers or the ones that are always having to give, and you don't know how to receive any sort of help yourself. So maybe you need help with that. So as we close out today, I want to return to the central point. You are allowed to care without carrying everything. Let's reiterate this one more time. You're allowed to care without being the one who has to carry everything. Now, compassion is a holy part of us, but burnout is not the goal for that. Boundaries can protect love from becoming resentment. You can be faithful without being the fixer, and you can love people deeply and still let them carry responsibility for their own lives. You can help people again, you can help others honestly without being in control. You can rest without feeling shame. Just remember this week as you go through. Maybe you need to go back and listen to all this again just to help. But I hope this will be something that can be maybe a foundation for you if you're this type of person where you're always helping and you're never really receiving some support yourself because you definitely need it. Thank you again for joining our Looking Forward Live today. My hope is this conversation gives you permission to keep loving, but to love with wisdom, with clarity, and with compassion for yourself as well. And I hope again that you have a great week and look forward to our time again next week. Have a good one.